In this lesson, we're going to talk about article structure and why it matters. Article structure 101. So, why does it matter? First of all, how you set up and structure the actual content inside of your article, it makes a big difference on how long people are going to stick around on your site. Whether they're just going to hit your site and go like, oh, this is overwhelming, or this is really ugly content, and leave. And ultimately, those things are going to affect how Google sees your site and your organic traffic, which is what this is all about, right? So having your article structured properly is going to help readers understand and scan your text very quickly and quickly find the content that they're looking for. You'd probably agree that even yourself, you've become more impatient on the internet, where when you're looking for something and you go to a site and you're not finding what you want, within just a few seconds, you're probably going to leave. And so that can happen to you if you have poor article structure. You could have done everything right, but missed this part and ultimately sabotage your efforts. Because Google sees, they understand when people click on your site and they bounce right back to the search engines, hitting the back button. That's sort of a ding against you. That tells Google that that person didn't like what they saw. But when they hit your site and they stay for a while, that's a really good sign, and your article structure is a big part of that. So more time on page helps Google understand that your site is giving out good content. People are getting the answers that they want to see. The other thing you can do with your article structure is help Google understand more of what your article is actually about, which keywords are the most important. And so we're going to talk about all of these things, including how you could possibly win the featured snippet section of Google. Sometimes it's called position zero, where Google will show like a little summary from an article right there in the search results. So we'll talk about how you can, possibly get that spot, sort of the prize position in organic search. So creating visually appealing content, the first thing to do is to avoid walls of text. You want to break up your text, specifically with your paragraphs. 1 to 3 sentences is usually sufficient. Anything longer than that is probably too long, and it's going to start to look like a big block of text that not a lot of people are going to read. And so, just remember, your ninth grade English teacher isn't going to be grading this. So even if it's not, grammatically the place to break up a paragraph or the end of your paragraph, it doesn't matter. The goal here is to add some white space, just because it makes it easier on the eyes when you're reading on a screen. It's easier to skim and to scroll through that. And then also breaking up your key points with subheadings. And so we'll talk about subheading formats here in just a minute. So we're not talking about just bold text. There is a way to do this properly, and I'll show you that in WordPress. But this is just another way that people can scan your content. And when you've got appropriate subheadings down throughout the content, people can jump to the area that they want to get to. So if they're looking specifically for the step-by-step process of your how-to article, they can jump right down to that subheading and get to what they want. So it's making it a user-friendly experience. So I'm going to jump out of the presentation and actually show you an example of this and what a difference it makes, and how you can set up your headings properly in WordPress using our site treasurepursuits.com. All right, so here we are looking at an article, and this is just a test article I set up just to show you the difference that it makes when you break up paragraphs into smaller sections. Now, you've probably seen content like this. We've got a few subheadings, which is fine. But as you're looking at this is what I would call a wall of text. So these paragraphs are way too long. And if you're looking at this as a reader, it feels like homework. So not a lot of people are going to stick around and read that. Here is an example of the live article, and this is the same thing. So there's a little bit more content to it. So we've got our little table here. But as you can see, when I scroll down, I've broken the paragraphs up into 1 to 3 sentences each, a lot more white space, and it's just a lot easier on the eyes. I mean, look at that, valuing the 1906 Indian head penny compared to the other one, right? And so there's a clear winner here. As far as doing the subheadings are concerned, this is the post behind the scenes here. So I just wanted to show you this, that your main subheadings, I mentioned before, these should be heading 2 up here. So in the paragraph structure, when you're working in WordPress, that would be a heading 2. So I just turned that off. So we're not talking about just bold text. And this does matter because when you're marking up your content like this and doing it the right way with subheadings, that sort of helps Google understand the structure of your site and things like that. So, it is very important to do this the right way. And then you can also use heading 3 and heading 4. So an example of this is if I had kind of like a sub point to go underneath this. Maybe think about it like when you're doing like a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. If I had something that kind of fit underneath the topic of the value of this, so maybe I would say exceptions to value or something like that. I might highlight that and make that a heading 3 because it kind of fits underneath this. And then if I wanted to go even further, let's say that I'm going to list out what the exceptions are. So one of the exceptions is no mint mark. I would make that a heading, but I just wanted to show the idea of sort of what nesting your headers would mean. So H2, H3, H4, as you're doing that is the structure that you want to do. And you will be many articles where the only subheaders we have are heading 2, and that's okay. It's just as if you get into some more in-depth stuff, I just wanted to show that you can also use the H3 and H4 header to structure things properly. All right, so let's jump back into the presentation and talk a little bit more about article structure. Okay, so let's talk more about making your content visually appealing. Other ways to make your content look great, of course, are to embed visuals. So that would be embedding YouTube videos, which you're free to do, by the way. It doesn't have to be just a video you created. I do this frequently. If you find a video on YouTube that somebody else has put up that's like a really good supplement to your content, feel free to embed that content. That's part of the deal. That's why YouTube has a share thing and they give you an embed code. That's sort of part of it. So feel free to embed those videos. Images, infographics, there are infographic sites out there that do the same thing. They give you an embed code because they want you to use it on your site. Charts, things like that kind of just break up your content and give it some visual appeal. Give your readers something to look at beyond text. When you can fit these things in there, it's always a bonus. And then adding a table of contents to your articles, especially those that are going to be above 2,000 words, can be a really helpful thing. And it can also help you win that position 0, that snippet area of Google. And you can see an example of that down below. And I'm actually going to show you the site in that example here so you can see what I mean. But there's a free plugin called the TOC Plus, Table of Contents Plus plugin that you can use. That's the one that many of us use, and it works just fine, and it will automatically create a table of contents for you, and you can just tell it where to go. Hey, put it after the second paragraph every time, and sort of set up the parameters of what you want. So there's some customization. But this is similar to like what Wikipedia does, and obviously Wikipedia is a very successful site as far as traffic is concerned. So there's something to this concept, especially when you get into your in-depth content. So let's jump out of the presentation again, and we'll look at this site. And I just want to show you the structure and sort of what it looks like when you're in position 0 of Google. All right, so here we are. This is the site is called baldingbeards.com, 7 best razors for men that provide a nice smooth shave. And so up at the top, it's got this featured snippet here of Google that pulls some of their data in. And then if we click on the site to look at it, we'll see that they do in fact have a table of contents near the top here. And so you can click on this and jump down further into the article. So I click on the section about a straight razor, and it'll just jump me down to that section of their article. So it's actually kind of nice from the user experience as well. If you're really wanting to pop down in a long article to something else, you can do that. But you can get an idea for a lot of the visuals in the content, the subheadings. It's a really, really solid long article, and using that table of contents plugin ultimately help them win the featured snippet area of Google. So let's go back to the presentation, and we'll talk a little bit more about keyword usage and things like that and why it matters for your article structure. All right, now let's talk about how article structure helps you rank in Google. First of all, we talked about having the keywords in your title in an earlier video. You also want to have your keyword and similar keywords, your related keywords, throughout your content. And that's going to happen naturally if you write just really good, engaging, in-depth content. Keywords are going to appear. And so our suggestion is that you use your main keyword in your introductory paragraph or somewhere near the top of the article. This helps cement the idea for Google of what the article is about. And frankly, that's usually the easiest and best place to fit your keyword. So if your keyword was best swimming goggles, when you're setting up an introductory paragraph, really what you're doing there is just telling people what you're about to tell them. So, you can say, sort of present the problem and then just say, but our guide to the best swimming goggles for 2018 should help you out, and then you get into the article. So that's a really easy place to use your keyword. After that, really you just want to worry about not overusing them. Keyword stuffing is an idea that's a number of years old now, that can lead to penalties for your site, and that was just in old school Google. If I said the word best swimming goggles 100 times in my article, that would be a helpful thing. Well, now that would be like a really hurtful thing. Really, you want to have that be about 1% of your text, maybe 1 to 2%, maybe, kind of depending on how long the keyword is there. But my rule of thumb is, once you've used it once, if you don't use it again, that's okay. If you mention it a few more times, that's fine. If you get to where you're, mentioning it 15, 20 times, you're saying that exact keyword over and over again, that could be a bit of a red flag because Google might think you're trying to game the system. And so if you just write good natural content, you shouldn't need to worry about it. Just make sure you use it once at the top, and then after that, if it pops up naturally, great. And then using your subheadings to help Google further understand what your article is about. So this is a great place to put in other long tail keywords that are not your primary keyword. So things that are related topics that you're also hoping to rank for with that article. And this stuff absolutely works. You don't want to keep using your primary keyword over and over again in your subheadings. Again, that could look a little fishy to Google, but similar related keywords, that's a great spot to use them as you're sort of filling out the outline of your site. So let's take a look at an example of this, of a particular blog post that's done a really great job of this and how it's paying off for them as far as how they're ranking in Google. All right, so this article is perhaps my favorite example of what I was just talking about, using subheadings to rank for not only your main keyword, but also a bunch of other related long tail keywords. And so this is on survivallife.com. The article is 36 paracord projects for preppers. So paracord projects is like the main keyword, and they're ranking for that. But down below, what they have is heading 2 right here, fun DIY paracord projects for preppers. And then heading 3, project 1, paracord belt, an image and a short description. Project number 2, keychain, bullwhip, compression strap, snowshoes, etc. You get the idea. So there's 36 of these, right? So they have the one primary keyword, but then they have a bunch of secondary keywords because some people are searching, how do I make a paracord belt? And so what happened is, if I pull this up in SEMrush, I've got the URL pulled up here, and you can see that it ranks for, according to SEMrush, 1.3 thousand keywords, so about 1,300 keywords that they're ranking for. They're number 1 for paracord projects, but they're also number 1 for paracord backpack, paracord braids, paracord weapons. And as you go down here, there's all kinds of stuff. The paracord lanyard, like a lot of these things that they use in their subheadings, they're also on page 1 for those. And so when you follow that same idea, using your subheadings to feature in on long tail keywords that you also want to rank for with your site, it can really pay off well for you when you take the time to be that thoughtful in how you're structuring your article. So let's head back to the presentation and we'll wrap this thing up. All right, let's recap what we learned here in the article structure lesson. So first of all, create content that is optimized for your users. You want to provide a great user experience. You want to give people the content that they want to see. So a great way to do that is to think like your users. Think like your target audience. What would you want to see? Would embedding a video along with this article be helpful, to get the point across, or using a graphic or a diagram? Would that make it a better experience? If so, find one. More time on page in general means better rankings with Google, and so by focusing on the user and their experience, their going to tend to stick around longer, but ultimately that's a win for you because that's going to help you in terms of organic traffic and Google is concerned. Structure your content so it's easy to read, it's easy to skim. Using table of contents like we showed an example of in your longer articles will help people bounce down to different sections that they want to just jump to very quickly, but it can also help you win that featured snippet section of Google and help Google better understand the structure of your content and what all is in there so you can rank for even more keywords. And then don't overuse your keywords. So we mentioned to be kind of conservative with that. Use your main keyword right there at the top of your article. After that, if it pops up naturally, great. If not, it's not a big deal. You want to worry about long tail keywords and really just writing really good in-depth content, because your variations of your keyword and your long tail keywords, they're gonna appear naturally if you write really good content. And so I think overall the message is just make sure that your content stands out from your competition, that it deserves to rank, and you're going to be in a really good spot.